I'm a 90s baby, so when I came of age musically, the stuff from the 60s and 70s really appealed to me. Now it's the 2020s, so the 90s are like that, but for now time. Alt-rock on one hand, indie on the other, and a big old jumbled mess in between. Here you'll find a pack of reviews for the weirdos, the old souls, the obscurists who make the allure of popular music seem attainable to those of us who live, work, and die in a basement. Early last month, the first They Might Be Giants album I ever listened to turned 20. I've had an off and on relationship with these nerdy cats who've been cranking out quirky music since the 80s, yet whenever I hit one of these phases, I hit them harder than the last one. I adore their mix of college quirk, experimental sounds, and often non-sequitur lyrics. After all, I like this guy. Now, contemporary reviews for The Spine were pretty down the middle, and while I don't necessarily think it ranks among their best work, it's still a pretty solid listen in 2024. The songs conjure images of spines, yeah, but also airplanes, raincoats, a raving bastard who wants to hit a guy, and even David Bowie speaking French. But the main reason this pocket exists is because the opening track, Experimental Film, not only distinguished by being the strongest song on the whole jaunt, as a music video collab with HomestarRunner.com. This was the first of several team-ups that not only introduced me to TMBG, but the alt-rock DNA that informed the Brothers Chaps and their trademark humor. Go give this thing an A-spin and embrace the weirdness. Underground pop might sound like an oxymoron, but it's actually the most apt way to describe some of my favorite music. A prime example can be found in the work of British songwriter, poet, gardener Martin Newell, whose songs mesh tasty pop melodies with a grimy, working-class perspective. While his work has racked up enthusiastic praise over the decades, especially that filed under his band Cleaners from Venus, you can credit his initial rise in relevance to his 1993 solo debut, The Greatest Living Englishman. A combination of re-recorded Cleaners tracks and fresh material, the album was produced by XTC bandmate Andy Partridge, and was largely tracked in his shed using then-new digital equipment. The end product, though comparatively lo-fi, is a cohesive and enjoyable listen front to back. And as a bonus, it includes one of my favorite Christmas songs that maybe 20 people have ever heard, Christmas in Suburbia. The album's a great introduction to an underrated talent who will undoubtedly be covered again on this channel. Go give it a listen.
Going home for Christmas in Suburbia.
In 1993, I was born. Woof-hoo. Meanwhile, in Dayton, Ohio, a gladiator-turned-wizard conjured white-hot discs of pure energy using ramshackle tools. Alchemic statements in a decade-long struggle to reclaim his own destiny. One such totem told the naysayers where they could shove it with the might of Champions Past.
And no one got to get there.
Before cascading into a noisy vortex of discombobulation and sending off those who listened with a final bombardment of mockery, as to say, yes, this is all quite silly, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Bruised and fatigued, synapses fried, your senses shocked into their absolute maximum, do you run from this burst of madness or turn to the mystic sorcerer himself and say, "Thank you, sir, may I have another?" Business is good for human amusements at hourly rates.
What the f*** are you talking about, man?
Fret not, my little pretties, I'm nowhere near close to done with these cats. All in due time. In the wake of groups like Greta Van Fleet and Crownlands, there's been a major push to pay direct tribute to the eternal sounds of the 60s and 70s. Recently, I came across the Lemon Twigs, whose fruity name already kind of evokes the raspberries, and yet upon listening to their top hits, they also channel the same energy and tone that defined pop rockers from that time, with bug boy harmonies, cascading guitar lines, hooks and choruses as defiant as they are beautiful. From where I stand, they are the heir apparent to Big Star, Badfinger, and perhaps even 90s counterparts like Teenage Fan Club or Olivia Tremor Control. Again, perhaps too precise and on the nose to that which they try to recapture, but at the end of the day, they play good, sound good, and feel good. I'm their target demographic, and goddamn if they haven't got me by the ear with their deliberate evocations of times long gone, or evocations that, in my opinion, are trying to make the case that they never went away. Food for thought. Melon gave them a strong A. They're here to stay. F*** it. The early to mid-80s were a major crossroads for many punk bands. Would you stick with the old-fashioned rock and roll, rise above with music that left stains, or follow Peter Buck and other trailblazers to lay the groundwork of what would become alternative rock? Well, here's an absolute gem from that last camp, The Replacements, and their signature album, Let It Be. And yes, That's a reference. A major departure from their acclaimed hardcore releases, Let It Be combines the ragged energy that the band was already known for with a tender melancholy that was uncommon among their peers. Songwriter Paul Westerberg opted for the struggles and insecurities of young people, turning his raspy vocals and riffs into a mouthpiece for heartbreak, loneliness, and the ennui. For me, the standout track is a surprisingly stripped-down piano ballad that sounds nothing like the other tracks on the record, Androgynous, a ode to those who live outside the gender binary, which has since grown into something of a queer anthem. Like the other songs, it was ahead of its time, and right now is the perfect time for music that hits somewhere between happy and sad. Go check it out. If the Grand Hour was a twisted State of the Union, the arrival of an immortal vampire on Titus before he wished he was a giant, here's instead a spell cast by way of drunken Beatles tapes, a burst of manic schoolyard electricity whose spark yields a static airplane jive. Pulitzer, please. You're still getting nothing out of me. No details for you about who or why or when. That's chump sh**. Well, alright, fine, maybe a little who. There's a little who, right next to the little who. And the little who. Anyway, this is a great listen that goes by like that. Only problem, it's a little hard to come by outside of the odd YouTube upload or expensive eBay listing, which is why I have taken the liberty of sequencing a Spotify playlist off of last year's release Scalping the Guru, which combined these catchy bops with those of 3 sister releases. Of course, if you've got half an hour to kill, by all means, just play that. But if you've got a little under 11, this will give you more than enough zest for the day. A jump start, if you will, that I will gladly watch. Getting ahead of myself. Play it loud, damn it. Musician Billy Cobb first popped up on my radar with his Zerwi project, a pitch-perfect emulation of 90s-era Weezer. The first EP and eventual full-length album are pretty much a one-to-one emulation of Rivers Cuomo's style, indicative of Billy's skills as a songwriter and a producer. But what's since impressed me even more is how good his music is outside of that pastiche. All the proof you need can be found in his recent single, As You Were, which to my ear pulls from a wider range of influences, with its lush tracking, groovy melodies, and warm, distorted guitar tones. Dude's put in the work to catch catchy hooks that transcend his novel roots as a YouTuber and Carl Weezer impersonator, and in a just world, this track and others like it would land a spot on DC 101.
I know that whoever's listening will never know that it's them.
Not bad for an upload that was allegedly a little ditty he pumped and dumped last night. How upsettingly put. Keep on keeping on, Billy, your shit's really good. The first time I remember hearing Sabotage was at the beginning of J.J. Abrams' first Star Trek movie, at the time the best Star Wars movie we had gotten since 1983. As a 14-year-old who didn't really get why the spin on Kirk and Spock would miff some hardcores, I thought that shit ripped. And so did they, apparently. So much so, they used the song again for the third movie's trailer. Never saw it, heard it was decent. Anyway, this song was recently pushed back to the front of the goo in my head by this Verta sketch where Jesus is driving like a son of a bitch. That's right, big guy, I'm calling you out. But here I am now, fully embracing the majesty of this jaw-socking, ass-kicking motherfucking song on its own terms. Between the spur-of-the-moment riff that defined 90s punk, the voice-cracking bars that got their initial street cred in the 80s, and that Spike Jonze music video that's somehow dorky as hell and badass, the Beastie Boys etched a new chapter in hard rock that makes me want to break shit. Vampire on Titus was a record made between 2 masterpieces of 90s indie rock. Yeah, I'm dropping the bit for this one. And for a group so often associated with DIY production and weirder sound effects, this album leans a bit harder into both of those facets of this band. Still, if you stick with it, maybe give it a few listens, there's a genuine timelessness on display. One that makes me such a die-hard fan of this body of work. A lyrical stream of consciousness that evokes life in the Midwest as much as it does psychedelic folklore, the tin can acoustics of the basements the songs were tracked in, the synergy of the band's many influences from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it all just feels good, and knowing the year that it came out was also the year that I came out of what, I'll tell you when you're older, makes my brain etch this hissy 4-track tape into the home movies in my head. Times long gone, friends whose paths have diverted away from mine, of dreams that I carry with me to the very moment I'm recording this. Give it a chance, even if it's a little jarring at first, there's magic to be found here. By the way, I'm sick, thank God I'm done.
That's some silly bastard.
For Halloween, there's no shortage of spooky, or at the very least, somewhat demonic jams to rattle your skull to. Well, it certainly helps that every other pop act gets charged with satanic messages in their music.
You're all boring Karens, by the way.
Plenty of heavy metal, punk, and indie bands have genre touches that will melt seamlessly into your next monster mash. My hard rec for this Halloween day comes from none other than one of Hollywood's true Renaissance men and future father of my children, Ryan the Gaz Gosling, Dead Man's Bones. A project started in 2009 with fellow musician Zach Shields, this slept-on group has only released one album thus far, recorded with a children's choir founded by Flea. Yeah, that Flea. Sound-wise, it's a unique fusion of retro rock and roll, modern psychedelia, and a gothic folkiness brought out by some eerie vocal performances. It's a great album that transcends its novelty and is so effective that it's influenced a handful of other underground groups, while select tracks have even been featured in movies like The Conjuring. Stir this into your witch's brew this year. There's an exciting wave of punk and indie music being put out by black artists, and the only reason I'm framing it like this is because through reasons both unconscious and deliberate, these racial divides make it so that saps like you and me don't associate certain sounds and genres with people of color, even though they've been there pretty much the whole time. Cleveland, Ohio artist Kenny Hoopla is one such modern talent to challenge these slants. His music has some of the most addicting hooks since the pop-punk golden age of the early 2000s, and even features Blank's Travis Barker on the drums a lot of the time. The music video for Stella, which came up as a YouTube ad for me by the way, was my first exposure to the song and is equally energetic with its cutout visuals and indie movie production. Go scope it out for 2 minutes of fist-pumping pop that'll almost make you want to do a backflip. Almost. I'm not built for that shit. Great music is out there, folks. You just gotta let yourself find it. I honestly wasn't sure how I wanted to pay tribute to Green Day this year. 1994's Dookie sounds just as fresh as any of the pop-punk that it inspired, and yet 04's American Idiot took the operatic teachings of The Who, Bowie, Floyd, and Husker Du into the new millennium. There, I said it. Now let's talk Billy Cobb.
Don't wanna be an American idiot.
One of my favorite music tubers happens to be one of the most prolific artists pop listeners have never heard of, putting out full LPs fairly regularly and unique singles between each one, all of which are killer listens for fans of the alternative scenes of the 90s and early aughts. Now comes one of the biggest surprises of the year, a folk interpretation of Green Day's iconic punk opera, Folk Idiot. The instrumentation is strong, the vocals give Other Billy a run for his money, and the spirit of the original is brought to new acoustic life by a sound that evokes some of my favorite folk punk. Jesus of Suburbia, backed by way of Defiance, Ohio, or Pat the Bunny. Our man Cobb's on a roll. I'm hoping this surprise drop gets him the eyes and ears he's deserved for years now. About 5 years ago, things got really silly and scary the world over. To cope with the twisted reality we were now living in, I went down a rabbit hole of indie rock that started with a whole lot of Dr. Dog. It was through these cats I happened upon these two names. The first one is widely considered the most important rock band of the 90s and has a quasi-biopic out starring Joe Curie that I still need to get to. The second one, however, which prompted me to listen to this weird-looking thing, changed who I am.
This is one of the most acclaimed bands in America today. This is their national television debut from their new album, Alien Lanes. Ladies and gentlemen, Guided by Voices.
After soaring to legendary status with 1994's B-1000, an ode to British invasion music, psychedelia, punk rock, and even a little prog, Robert Pollard, along with his brother Jimmy the Giant, Tobin Sprout, Kevin Fennell, Mitch Mitchell, Greg Demos, and Jim Greer tracked an equally adored follow-up that went for a jaggedy, angular approach. Brimming with even more cryptic lyrics and jarring song fragments, it gives you a glimpse of GBV's more somber side. If B-1000 was the triumphant celebration after a decade in obscurity, Alien Lanes is the hangover, injected with more cynicism than you'd probably expect, yet still packed with immaculate melodies and hooks that make you feel good. Fans are divided on this one, some saying it's almost as good, or even better than its predecessor, while some think it would have been better with fewer left turns and more of a focus on the songcraft. While it's not necessarily my favorite after having sat with Bob's terrifyingly huge discography half a decade now, it's still an amazing record, and I think its messiness is part of the point. The main songs here are among the band's greatest, like My Valuable Hunting Knife, Salty Salute, and Game of Pricks. That last track is so goddamn earth-shatteringly good, I wrote a whole essay about it that I would eventually like to make into a zine. One thing at a time, though, because I want to die right now. If you're a pop rocker, power popper, folk rocker, or indie fucker, this is an essential listen. Who knows, it just might convert you to the Church of the Fading Captain, just like it did me in the spring of 2020 when I needed it most. As anyone can tell you, or as you can tell you if you watch my last two shorts, I'm a sucker for jangly pop rock written and engineered to sound like it was buried in a time capsule back in 1975. It's why I love the bands I do, whether it's the OGs like Roy Wood, Jeff Lynne, Badfinger, or Todd Rundgren, or neo-classic rockers like the Lemon Twigs, who by the way recently put out a collaborative Christmas song with the singer named Tchotchke, titled Tchotchkes. It's adorable and I love it, and that's pretty much all I have to say about it, which is why I'm just gonna say it here. But this here pocket is actually being written in tribute to a group that opened up for these old souls on their last tour, which flooded my feed with live clips and bootleg audio that had me salivating for an official release. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Modlang. Ring-sleeved mopheads who you can tell know their shit by virtue of their name alone. Any friend of Alex Chilton is a friend of the Noosk. Look at this cover art for the single. It looks like Reading Rainbow, or that stripy paint in the Brothers Strong's basement, or a live-action adaptation of Whatever Happened to Robot Jones. As for the music, right away you can hear why they got the gig. Tight vocal harmonies, glowing and infectious chords, with a dash of grungy, glammy stank.
Name your sex tape.
It lands them somewhere between The Who, The Kinks, Big Star, and 2020. TV Star could easily be the theme for an actual TV show, and is every bit as head-boppy as Cheap Trick's cover of In the Street, while that stomping beat on 3+1 is as kick-ass as any staples you'd find on your uncle's summer mixtape in the attic. If it sounds like I'm going in circles with how much this new thing reminds me of old things, it's because that is like oxygen to me. I feel so at home and affirm knowing that a slew of neo-boomers like me are starting bands and evoking these legendary artists because that's the shit they want to make. If Modlang keeps at this pace with whatever goes on their first LP, I'll be copping that thing on the day it comes out. Go give these tracks a spin, go give the music video a watch, look up any live performances that happen to be on YouTube like these, and keep tabs on this exciting group that's one talking animal or ghost or alien away from solving cross-country mysteries in a van. Now, if you're a fan of lo-fi indie, folk punk, or psychedelia, why not head over to the second channel and check out my free EP. It's got 2 covers and an instrumental. If you fuck with my vibe overall, though, you can also check out my Patreon, which features exclusive videos and downloadable printable zines I've made. Every little bit donated is appreciated and allows me to focus on what I love doing rather than fretting over rent, fascism, and the entropy of the human race. What, too real? Here's a horse playing Catch with the Dragon.